Well, breaking news, Sharon, just in the last few moments. Todd Lyons, the head of ICE, will now not have to appear before this court on Friday. And I'll tell you why in just a second. But a bit of background on this first. This order came from Patrick Schiltz, who is the chief federal judge in Minnesota, appointed by George W. Bush. He threatened Lyons as being held in contempt of court for defying court orders and ICE defying court orders. This stemming from the case of Juan Tobe Robles, who entered the U.S. illegally around 30 years ago. He has been detained by ICE since January 6th. Now, on January 14th, Schiltz ordered ICE to allow Robles a hearing on his detention within a week or to let him go. Now, that hadn't happened, which prompted the judge then to threaten the head of ICE with contempt of court if he didn't come to explain why his orders hadn't been followed. Well, now, as we are learning that Mr. Tobe Robles has now been freed. His team, his legal team there, talking to NBC News and saying that he has now been released and is in Texas. So that means that this entire situation now for Lyons goes away and he will not have to appear before the court on Friday. So it appears here that the judge's pressure has worked and ultimately led ICE to release this man. It was an astonishing show of frustration by the judge. He called it himself an extraordinary step, but it said it was justified because, in his words, the extent of ICE's violation of court orders is likewise extraordinary. This, of course, though, just one of a flurry of court cases that we are now seeing in Minnesota and Minneapolis because of that crackdown on immigration there, with around 3,000 agents on the ground from the federal government.
Fraser, it's a rapidly moving story, as you suggest there. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's so-called border czar is in Minneapolis. The US president really struggling with damage control. We've just heard from him a couple of minutes ago saying that while he wants, an honest investigation into what happened at the weekend, he's saying that Alex Preddy shouldn't have been carrying a gun.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things here is that Trump's kind of walking back some of the more heated rhetoric from some of his most senior advisors and officials. Stephen Miller, the deputy chief of staff for the White House, said that this man was a would-be assassin. Trump was asked whether he agreed with that characterization, and Trump said no. But he also did say that, he shouldn't have been carrying a gun as well. That then contradicting the Second Amendment and his words that he said at that gaggle outside of the White House have reached a lot of people online. Donald Trump and his administration have long painted themselves as advocates for the right to bear arms, and Trump now saying that you can't carry a gun in a protest does not sit well with a lot of people, including the National Rifle Association, who are one of the biggest lobby groups out there when it comes to gun rights. Trump himself is also shifting slightly on the ground in Minneapolis. Tom Homan, the border czar, is now there. He's met with Governor Walz and also Mayor Fry of Minneapolis. Fry said that the meeting between the two men was productive. He said he made it clear that Minneapolis does not and will not enforce federal immigration laws. But one of the other key movements that has taken place in the last 24 hours is that the man who was running operations there for the Customs and Border Patrol is out. Greg Bovino, who made some inflammatory statements on TV and online, including saying that the real victims of Saturday's shooting of Alex Preddy was actually the Border Patrol agents who shot him. That raised a lot of eyebrows online, and he replied to a lot of critics online as well, ultimately having his access to social media taken away by Homeland Security officials. That, according to CNN. Well, he is now out and is headed back to California, having been stripped of his title of commander, and some of his federal agents are also leaving the city as well. So the situation is moving on the ground, but those ICE agents and the CBP agents still very much a presence there in Minneapolis.
Fraser,